America's Guard of Honor, A Brief History by Robert M. Albertsen Jr. Forged in the foothills of Georgia. All-American honor. I may have entered the service under a Ranger contract, but when a brutal injury in airborne school derailed that path, finding a new home in the 82nd Airborne Division was nothing short of destiny. Being a paratrooper isn't just about the jump, it's about charging into the unknown, answering the call anytime, anywhere. That's the spirit of the 82nd, always ready to leap into the heart of the action and stand unbreakable in the name of freedom. The day I joined the 82nd Airborne was unforgettable pride and nerves boiling over, knowing I was stepping into one of the U.S. Army's most storied divisions. With over a century of history dating back to 1917, the division carries a legacy that's almost impossible to capture. The 82nd was restructured as an airborne division in 1942, and from that point, their reputation became ironclad, forged in the tribulation of battles from Sicily to Normandy, on through Market Garden and beyond. The division's acts of courage and sacrifice fill the pages of military history, each a testament to the fierce spirit of the All-Americans. It's humbling knowing I could never hope to fully recount every act of valor, honor, and sacrifice made in the name of our freedoms. But I know this much. I served among these warriors, walked beside legends. I stood, if only for a brief moment, on the shoulders of giants, under the shadow of heroes, and that, without question, was the greatest honor of my life. Creation of a legacy in valor. In the tense shadows cast by the looming specter of war, America moved decisively to fortify her defenses. It was the U.S. Army Expansion Act of 1917, authorized by Congress and ratified on May 18, 1917, that paved the way for the establishment of new military installations. Among these, nestled strategically near Chamblee, Georgia, would be the future location of Camp Gordon, selected meticulously for its proximity to vital railroads, robust infrastructure, and terrain ideally suited for military training. The area was a natural crossroads, linking vital industrial arteries of the South, promising rapid troop deployment and logistical superiority, essential for America's eventual expanding global presence. The government acquired approximately 2,400 acres of prime land at a substantial yet necessary cost, over $2 million taxpayer dollars. A sizable investment signaling the nation's commitment to preparedness and swift mobilization capabilities. The sprawling camp quickly rose from the Georgian clay, a testament to American engineering and organizational prowess. With unprecedented speed, Camp Gordon emerged from barren fields to fully operational status in just 5 months. A striking reflection of strategic coordination and the nation's capacity for large-scale mobilization of the U.S. military and its civilian contractors. Spanning the impressive 2,400 acres, the camp encompassed 1,635 buildings, designed to house and support nearly 47,000 soldiers and stable over 7,600 horses and mules. It stood as one of the largest among the 32 other training camps built across the nation during the World War I era, setting a new benchmark in military infrastructure. The comprehensive nature of the facilities was nothing short of extraordinary. Beyond the extensive barracks and stables, Camp Gordon boasted mess halls, meticulously planned sanitation systems, numerous warehouses, and the state-of-the-art base hospital. Simply named Base Hospital No. 43, was established on August 30, 1917, and equipped with 500 beds. Under the seasoned leadership of Major Edward C. Davis, the hospital featured an advanced medical staff comprising 24 officers, 65 nurses, 154 enlisted soldiers, and 6 civilian personnel. This establishment underscored America's progressive approach to wartime healthcare and soldier readiness, even going so far as providing necessary services in Europe, where it expanded its capacity and treated 9,127 patients during its activated period in theater. Camp Gordon's infrastructure reflected cutting-edge design principles tailored explicitly to modern military needs. Sewage systems, running water, and centrally located administration buildings streamlined operations, setting standards that would influence military architecture for decades to come. The close cooperation between military planners and private engineering firms, notably Lockwood Green & Co., showcased a groundbreaking model of rapid, large-scale construction that would later influence both civilian and military projects nationwide. Strategically placed near Atlanta, Camp Gordon maximized existing railroad networks to enhance logistical efficiency, facilitating rapid deployment and resupply. This logistical excellence was critical in training and equipping a ready, responsive fighting force capable of swift mobilization. Beyond military readiness, the establishment of Camp Gordon provided significant economic stimulus to the local community. The rapid influx of soldiers, support personnel, and construction crews spurred unprecedented growth in the local economy, transforming the nearby towns through increased commerce, population growth, and infrastructure development. Local businesses flourished, new jobs were created, and the economic landscape of Chamblee and Greater Atlanta was forever changed. Other contemporaneous camps, such as Camp Dix in New Jersey, similarly embodied the commitment to excellence, showcasing facilities with running water, modern sanitation, sophisticated hospitals, and communication systems. Each National Army cantonment became a microcosm of American ingenuity and organizational capability, vital for supporting both the health and rigorous training of new soldiers. Legacy and Valor. The selection of the name Camp Gordon was no casual decision. It resonated deeply with historical significance, honoring Major General John Brown Gordon, a figure whose legacy, though complex, undeniably shaped both regional and national narratives. Gordon's life was a study in contrasts, a Southern hero of war, a committed advocate for reconciliation, and a dynamic political leader whose actions reverberated through American history. Born in Upson County, Georgia, on February 6, 1832, Gordon had no formal military education, yet his tactical instincts and sheer audacity quickly transformed him into one of the most formidable commanders in the Confederate Army. From the very outset of the Civil War, at the First Battle of Manassas in 1861, Gordon's valor and sharp decision-making earned him immediate recognition and trust among his peers and commanding officers. But it was at the Battle of Antietam in September 1862 that Gordon's unyielding spirit etched itself permanently into military history. Commanding a critical position at the infamous Bloody Lane, Gordon was wounded 5 times, each injury more grievous than the last. Despite relentless pain and blood loss, he refused evacuation, rallying his men until finally collapsing from exhaustion and severe injuries. This harrowing display of personal bravery and commitment inspired not only his soldiers, but earned begrudging respect from even his Union adversaries. At Gettysburg in 1863, Gordon's tactical brilliance was again evident, spearheading aggressive assaults against Union positions, challenging entrenched enemy forces. His actions during the Battle of Spotsylvania Courthouse in 1864 further underscored his reputation as an aggressive and cunning strategist, leading a fierce counterattack that temporarily halted Union advances. Yet, perhaps Gordon's greatest historical significance lay in the closing chapter of the Civil War. During the final retreat at the Appomattox Campaign in 1865, Gordon played an instrumental role, negotiating alongside General Robert E. Lee at Appomattox Courthouse, marking the dignified and respectful surrender of the Confederate forces, a critical step toward national healing. In the post-war era, Gordon's vision pivoted dramatically. Committed now to reconciliation, he traversed the country delivering stirring lectures, passionately advocating unity, respect, and mutual understanding between former enemies. As Commander-in-Chief of the United Confederate Veterans, he fostered camaraderie and remembrance among veterans, urging Southern dignity while promoting national unity. Gordon's influential political career solidified his legacy further. As a U.S. Senator, serving from 1873 to 1880, and again from 1891 to 1897, he navigated delicate political landscapes, representing Southern interests with vigor while firmly championing national reconciliation. His tenure as governor of Georgia from 1886 to 1890 witnessed vigorous efforts toward modernization, driving railroad expansions and fostering industrial growth, transforming Georgia from a war-ravaged state into a prosperous, forward-looking economy. Today, Major General John Brown Gordon's legacy remains prominent, yet deeply nuanced. Celebrated for military brilliance, remembered as a symbol of the lost cause, his name adorns numerous landmarks, none more meaningful than Camp Gordon itself. Named in his honor during World War I, the camp embodied Gordon's spirit of resilience, tactical innovation, and fierce loyalty to comrades. This choice was both a tribute to his wartime courage and an acknowledgement of his lifelong efforts toward unity and national reconciliation. Foundations of Valor. Before the roar of artillery echoed across the European countryside, before the boots of the 82nd Infantry Division struck the muddy battlefields of France, there was Camp Gordon, an unforgiving proving ground nestled in the red clay heartland of Georgia. Here, under the sweltering southern sun and in the shadow of the looming global conflict, men were broken down and rebuilt into instruments of precision, endurance, and resolve. It was not war, but it was war's crucible, the furnace in which the All-American Division was forged. From the moment a recruit stepped onto the grounds of Camp Gordon in 1917, he was stripped of civilian identity. His clothes were exchanged for rough-spun woolen uniforms. His name became a serial number, his voice a chant in cadence, and his comfort a memory. Mornings began before dawn, the stillness of night punctured by the bugler's call, a shrill reveille that cut through sleep like a whip crack. Within minutes, soldiers were dressed, standing in ranks, adjusting gear that was often mismatched or outdated, but always expected to be carried with unflinching resolve. Physical endurance was the bedrock of the training regimen. Long-distance marches were commonplace, sometimes exceeding 10 or 12 miles, with each man hauling a full combat load across terrain designed to test every ligament and tendon. The weight of ammunition belts, entrenching tools, and bayoneted rifles became as familiar to the body as breath itself. Obstacles were constructed to simulate the jagged hellscape of no man's land, barbed wire crawls, muddy trenches, and sandbag parapets. It was here that muscle memory replaced fear and hesitation. Rifle marksmanship was drilled into every soldier with obsessive repetition. Targets were set at distances mimicking real battlefield scenarios, and every miss was scrutinized with the cold precision of an engineer dissecting a misfire. Bayonet practice was equally relentless. More than a melee weapon, the bayonet became an extension of willpower. Soldiers were trained not only to thrust, parry, and recover, but to do so with the aggressive ferocity required in close-quarters trench fighting. Trench warfare simulations consumed vast stretches of the training fields. Winding lines of earthen ditches, reinforced with wooden planks and sandbags, mimicked the defensive networks of the Western Front. Soldiers spent hours navigating these mazes under simulated bombardments and gas attack drills. Poison gas, one of the most feared innovations of the Great War, was a constant focus. Troops were taught to don gas masks with speed and efficiency, often while disoriented by smoke and artificial chaos. Failure was not an option. Delays in real combat meant agonizing death by asphyxiation. Chemical warfare training brought a sinister realism to the exercises. Chlorine and phosgene gas effects were drilled through demonstration, and in controlled exposures, soldiers learned the sting of panic and the salvation of preparedness. The mask was lifeline and shield. Each man was expected to wear it without flaw, fit it without hesitation, and trust it without question. The climate was as much an adversary as any imagined enemy. The Georgia heat was not a gentle warmth, but a smothering blanket of humidity that soaked uniforms and baked the men beneath their helmets. Rain came with fury, pounding the earth into thick clay that clung to boots and slowed every step like invisible hands grasping at their ankles. Nights brought a damp chill that settled deep into bones. Camp Gordon became a place where nature itself tested discipline. Rations were lean. Salt pork, hardtack, beans, and weak coffee became the daily fare. The scarcity bred ingenuity. Soldiers bartered, shared, and improvised. It was in mess halls and muddy trenches alike that the bonds of camaraderie were soldered. Shared hardship forged kinship. Here, the All-American Division became more than a name. It became a brotherhood. Leadership training was rigorous. Non-commissioned officers, often promoted from within the ranks, were expected to know their men intimately. Their authority was earned through sweat, shared labor, and the ability to inspire under duress. Officers were molded not as distant commanders, but as field leaders who ate last, marched first, and stood shoulder to shoulder with their troops. Among those molded by this crucible was Corporal Alvin C. York of the 328th Infantry Regiment. Although a reluctant warrior at first, devout in faith and unsure of violence, York emerged from Camp Gordon with a refined understanding of duty and courage. His later heroism at the Meuse-Argonne offensive, where he captured 132 German soldiers and neutralized multiple machine gun nests, was not an isolated miracle. It was the result of exhaustive training, forged instincts, and the moral clarity instilled by the values of his unit. The technological limitations of the time made every aspect of training even more crucial. Communications relied on runners, flares, and field telephones that could be severed by a single artillery shell. Artillery coordination was taught through hands-on calculation with protractors and plotting boards, not computer systems. Every soldier, from private to colonel, had to understand his role in a machine where one cog out of sync could mean total collapse. Traditions began to emerge amid the hardship. Soldiers painted insignia with pride. The AA patch wasn't just fabric, it was identity. Morning formations became rituals of unity. Songs and slogans were born in barracks and carried into battlefields. Discipline was rigid, but morale was buoyed by a shared understanding of the stakes. When the 82nd Infantry Division departed for Europe, it left behind not just the fields of Georgia, but the memory of 1,000 small victories over self-doubt, fatigue, and physical limitation. The soldiers who marched onto the ships bound for France were not the same men who had arrived at Camp Gordon months earlier. They were honed, hardened, and resolute. The crucible of Camp Gordon did not merely prepare men for war, it transformed them into warriors whose legacy would echo across generations. The esprit de corps, built in those grueling days under southern skies, would serve as the foundation of the 82nd Airborne Division's continued excellence, from the trenches of World War I to the airborne assaults and digital battlefields of the 21st century. Experience to legacy. Commanding this nascent installation was Major General Eben Swift, a seasoned officer renowned for his service in the Spanish-American War and the Philippine insurrection. Swift's reputation as a disciplined and innovative leader preceded him. His methods instilled confidence among the troops and officers alike, setting a rigorous yet inspiring standard that would define the division's enduring ethos. With America's entry into World War I, Camp Gordon birthed the 82nd Infantry Division, drawing recruits from every state, thus inspiring the legendary soldier-coined nickname All-American. Private W.B. Price, stationed at Camp Gordon, encapsulated the division's spirit by designing its first insignia, a bold AA, signifying unity drawn from across the nation. This emblem quickly became more than just fabric sewn on uniforms. It symbolized brotherhood forged in hardship, an identity carried into battlefields and cherished during peacetime. Structured initially as a square division comprising 2 infantry brigades, the 163rd Infantry Brigade, with the 325th and 326th Infantry Regiments, and the 164th Infantry Brigade, which encompassed the 327th and 328th Infantry Regiments. To support these core brigades, the 157th Field Artillery Brigade was also established, comprising the 319th, 320th, and 321st Field Artillery Regiments, alongside the 307th Trench Mortar Battery, Engineer Battalions, and supporting services. The 82nd's organization marked an evolution rather than a revolution. Still, its emphasis on combined arms and cohesive unit functionality anticipated modern military doctrines decades ahead of its time. As battles flared across European trenches and forests, the 82nd Division rapidly solidified its reputation. Its men distinguished themselves at St. Mihiel and the Meuse-Argonne offensive, brutal tests of courage amid relentless shellfire, choking mud, and oppressive weather. Through torrents of rain that reduced battlefields to quagmires and fog dense enough to obscure enemy lines, these soldiers endured conditions that strained their humanity yet strengthened their resolve. Acts of conspicuous gallantry, such as Lieutenant Colonel Emery Pike, became enduring testaments to their courage and fighting prowess. In the crucible of combat, bonds among soldiers tightened beyond the comprehension of civilians. The esprit de corps that flourished was not mere camaraderie. It was a sacred covenant sealed in blood, forged through shared hardship, sustained by mutual respect, and immortalized by deeds of valor. Following the armistice, Camp Gordon, the division was demobilized and its soldiers returned to civilian life, dispersing across the United States. However, the legacy and structure of the 82nd had been well established. When global conflict erupted again in 1939 with the advent of the Second World War, military planners looked to the 82nd for reactivation, recognizing its potential as a highly effective combat force. The 82nd Infantry Division was reactivated on March 25, 1942 at Camp Claiborne, moving eventually to its permanent installation at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. There, reborn as the 82nd Airborne Division in August 1942, the unit pioneered revolutionary airborne warfare tactics. Through the years, Camp Gordon would be relocated the short distance to Augusta, Georgia, and mature into Fort Gordon, becoming pivotal in American national security, serving as a hub for communication and intelligence training. Fort Gordon, meanwhile, remained crucial, shifting roles from training infantrymen to specialists in communications and signals intelligence, safeguarding America's secrets, ensuring operational security, and preserving national interests. Thus, the legacy begun at Camp Gordon evolved, expanded, and endured. From mud-soaked trenches of France to sun-scorched deserts of the Middle East, from jungle-thick islands of the Pacific to the rugged mountains of Afghanistan, the men of the 82nd Airborne Division became legendary. Revered by allies for their unmatched readiness and combat effectiveness, feared by foes for their swift and overwhelming response, they epitomized America's military might and resolve. In every conflict, the tradition established at Camp Gordon, the relentless pursuit of excellence, uncompromising courage, and unwavering loyalty continued to guide the division. Each jump, each firefight, each victory was a chapter in an ongoing saga of heroism, unity, and sacrifice. A saga born in the rich red clay of Chambly, Georgia, shaped by visionaries like General Eben Swift and carried forward proudly beneath the emblematic AA patch. Thus, Camp Gordon stood not only as a vast, modern military installation, but also as a lasting tribute to a man whose complex legacy continues to inspire both contemplation and respect. It is in his name that generations of soldiers trained and prepared, inheriting a legacy of valor, commitment, and camaraderie, foundations upon which the elite 82nd Airborne Division would be built, a division destined to become one of America's most revered military units.